It's just going to be a general video on Hurricane Idalia. All right, it is at 90-mile-an-hour sustained winds as of the 2 p.m. advisory, 974 millibar pressure, and it's moving north at 15 miles an hour. Overnight, it was kind of stuck in tropical storm phase, intensity-wise, as it moved over the western part of Cuba. It was 70 miles an hour sustained winds, at least for a few advisories, only moving 8 miles an hour. So now it's moved into the open Gulf. It's picked up a bit of speed, and it's in an area that's climatologically very favorable for rapid intensification. We also have Franklin over here. It's a major hurricane. It's moving away from the U.S. mainland. It's not going to be a problem for us, and it luckily is going to miss Bermuda. Let's take a look at the infrared satellite first. To the right here, you see this absolute textbook buzzsaw swirl of a hurricane that is Franklin. It has a nice clear eye. It's got good convection, evenly spread out in all quadrants. And then you have this blob over here. This is Idalia, which is, it's got deep convection, but it's hard to pinpoint the center of circulation. At least it was last night as it moved over Cuba. But as we put this in motion, you'll see it start to move away from Cuba into the open Gulf waters. It definitely takes on a more of a classic tropical system spiral look. You can see the center of circulations right in here. It's a bit lopsided to the east with this large spiral arm and kind of a disjointed spiral band to the north. Both of these are producing a lot of spiral bands of showers and thunderstorms, producing prolific rain rates, I'm sure, and some of these storms up here in southern Georgia and the Florida Panhandle are prolific lightning producers. But the storm will continue to intensify over the next 12 to 18 hours until it makes a landfall somewhere around Apalachee Bay in the eastern Florida Panhandle. If we look at the visible satellite, we can't really see an eye. You can definitely see the center of circulations here. A little while ago, it was trying to develop an eye, still clouded over. But if we look at the precipitation, look at the radar, back it up a bit. As soon as this system came into view, you can see an eye wall in the precipitation. So that's definitely a sign of an intense tropical system, and it sort of collapses in on itself, and then will redevelop. It'll do that several times. That's called an eye wall replacement cycle. That's just part of the intensification process, and you can see some of these first spiral bands into southwest Florida, and then another batch up toward the Panhandle. Another threat, and probably the first serious threat that will be felt in the peninsula, will be a tornado threat, actually. Systems like this, the eastern side of them, have wind shear that's favorable for tornadic development. This will be a threat that's outside the main wind field, so even if it's not super windy, you still could have a tornado threat. Most of these tornadoes are going to be fairly weak. We're not looking at long track, violent tornadoes like we see in the Midwest, but any tornado is a potentially dangerous tornado. So if you get a tornado warning, just make sure you are in a safe space, inside, away from windows, lowest floor of a building. Let's take a look at the National Hurricane Center's track for this storm. Here it is down here. We have an M here, which implies intensification to a major hurricane. So that's sustained winds 100 miles an hour or greater. It's looking like maybe 120 miles an hour or so is what the max sustained winds will be when it makes landfall. It's not unheard of for hurricanes in this part of the Gulf to intensify even greater than model guidance suggests. So it could possibly intensify greater than that. But either way, it's going to be a very impactful storm. Also, this is the this white area, kind of the cone of uncertainty. These systems also historically err a bit toward the south or east side of these tracks, but It might move a little west, it might move a little east. If you're in this red area, which is the hurricane warning, no matter what, you will feel significant impacts from this storm. So just because the eye doesn't move over your backyard, don't think that you won't feel impacts from this storm. The winds will be very strong in the eastern panhandle when this storm approaches tomorrow morning. Over water could be gusting over 140 miles an hour. Probably not going to see anything like that, except maybe right on the immediate coast could be gusting over 100, possibly 120 miles an hour. But as soon as the storm moves inland, the effects of the terrain and the friction from that drop the wind speed significantly, but still tropical storm force winds possible. And that's what this blue line is here. Even on the Atlantic side, there's a tropical storm warning for the storm. Storm surge, which is the deadliest part of a hurricane, 10 to 15 feet for the bullseye up here. And the entire west coast of Florida is still 2 to 4 feet for Tampa Bay down to Everglades City about. So that's 2 to 4 feet the sea is going to rise. So Tampa Bay 4 to 7 feet. What that means, think a storm surge is just the ocean rising that much, more or less. So if you have a 7 foot storm surge, depending on the slope of the land, I mean, that could make it several miles inland, and there's going to be ocean there where there shouldn't be ocean. Or if you're right at sea level at the coast, that could be 7 feet of water that's over your head. So hopefully anyone that was told to evacuate has heeded these warnings and taken them seriously. You do not want to be on the coast for a storm surge anywhere near these numbers, let alone with the 100+ mile an hour winds on top of it. One more threat they'll have to deal with down here is heavy rainfall. There should be a swath from northern Florida through southern Georgia into the coastal Carolinas of probably a 5 to 8 inch swath of rainfall, and there could even be a few 10-inch reports mixed in there. All right, that's it for now.